Hello, everybody. Welcome along to our stream. Sorry we're a bit late, but you know, sometimes we have to chat. What is dead may never die, unless it's me in the heat. It's still really hot here. I hope my fan isn't bothering anyone. I don't think it is. I think it's all right. I'm here with the lovely Claire, and we are... Hi, Claire.
Hi.
And we are discussing from Sam 2 all the way to the drowned man. So that means Kingsmoot, people. I had the closest thing to a ship. I have Davos's ship, but that's it. I don't have an Ironborn t-shirt. But yeah, next week we will be back to Brienne, because what is A Feast for Crows without Brienne? So we'll be reading Brienne 4 to Cersei 5 next week. But yeah, so Claire, how'd you get on with this week's reading?
I enjoyed them. I liked the Kingsmoot. I liked it so much better than the memory of the adaptation in the TV show. And I think for me this week, rather than thinking too much about the chapters that we've covered, I was thinking more about other concepts, but that are kind of prevalent to Feast. Like, even though we're not going to be covering it, and I'm going way off topic here, but I was thinking about the previous chapters at the Eyrie with Sansa and Littlefinger, and just how trapped she is there in that location. You know, just, oh, sorry if you can hear the kettle boiling. Open plan living.
That's your dragon horn.
It's just, there's only, if you wanted to escape that location, there's only two ways quickly that you could leave that building. One is through the moon door, and one is into the blue, off, you know, from the sky cells. Both equally horrific, but you can't get out of that location quickly. So there's just this, and I'm a little bit, I do have a tendency towards claustrophobia. So anything where I feel like I haven't got an escape route, or I can't get out somewhere quickly if I'm in an uncomfortable situation, is oppressive to me. And just so I've been thinking a lot about that, about Sansa in the Eyrie, and how, seeing that she is so trapped, I'm guessing like much worse things could have happened to her at the hands of Littlefinger in that location. So
Littlefinger might not be that bad.
Well, who knows? Who knows? I mean, I think I'm just more scared of the actual location itself.
Yeah.
And also,
do we have a Sansa chapter next week?
Yes, we've got an Elaine chapter.
Oh, yeah, an Elaine chapter, yeah.
An Elaine chapter and an Arya chapter, actually.
Right.
But I think it was listening to your podcast this week, I think you were talking about the Meisters.
With the wonderful Johnny B. Crazy, who's in the chat.
Yes. Yeah. Were you talking about like basically they I think it was Johnny actually talking about how part of the end game that he wanted was for the Citadel to blow up.
Well, and that's definitely his theory, yeah.
And I thought about that, and I thought, because there is that kind of no, all the knowledge and it, but it's like, yeah, but it's fake. It's all fake. It's all hocus pocus. So why not just burn it all down and start again? And just this notion of, yeah, the Meisters do control all of the knowledge and the communication everywhere, which is interesting, because in the two chapters with the Iron Islands, I think maybe that is the difference in the culture that you get. I know that I've talked about the Iron Islands having that ancient feel, but it's the fact that there's no control from, well, what was it Lady Dustin called them, the grey rats. So actually I quite like Johnny's theory of blowing up the Citadel and starting again.
When we finish our reread, we'll definitely have to do something with Johnny on that, because I think the three of us have a lot to say, maybe. And there's Ella Moore. Hi, Ella Moore. The four of us might have a lot to say about the Meisters and the Citadel and all that kind of thing. There's a lot. I'm paying much more attention to that.
I'm much more suspicious now. And I think Feast is the book where we can delve into that a lot more with Sam. and Maester Aemon and just and Qyburn, you know, there's these fringes of the order that it's like, you know, with Sam, will he be a Maester, won't he be a Maester? He keeps protesting. And again, at the beginning of this chapter, I know this is a really long introduction, sorry, I'm kind of segueing into Sam here as well. Again, he says that he doesn't want to be a Maester, and it's just making me think, is that his destiny? Will he be a Maester ultimately?
Yeah.
Or will he just find out? Will he be the one that finds out?
Or as we were talking about on Wednesday night, maybe something new. You know, that's what LMR thinks. So,
but again, does this mean that? Does it mean that the Maesters are kind of consciously evil? The fact, I mean, that's a lot of power controlling. It's like being a media mogul, isn't it? You're controlling what people, you know, and the fact that what you were talking about as well, about freedom of education and things like that. There are no schools, and only highborn children get access to education delivered through a Maester. So but I suppose the question is, for me, are the Maesters, do they think that they are, what they're doing is good, is collecting knowledge, and, you know, are they just doing their job and following orders, or is there some huge conspiracy that they're all in, which is about controlling the masses? And
it's kind of like the Catholic Church. From the outside, everything seems conspiratorial, but like, I know priests, I know nuns, they're not part, they're just people. I'm sure there are people like Marwyn who are certainly fanning the flames of conspiracy around Westeros, right? So there are certainly people that can see a bigger picture for their institution, that it ends up becoming some sort of conspiracy. But definitely, and obviously, guys, if you want, you can click on Johnny and Lamore's channels. They're moderators there in the chat, so you'll see them. And I should say hi to everybody that's come along. Barbara, hi Barbara. Ion and Jules, and of course Bubba. Bubba is a little bit scared. I think he can see Stuart going back and forth there, and it's a little bit scary. But just in the background,
there went that person again. Yeah, it's just my husband. Don't worry.
So we'll definitely pencil in a Maester's. We'll definitely pencil in a Maester Citadel stream in the future. I'm gathering a list. We have geographical locations, and we have the Maesters and religions. Orders. Yeah, absolutely. Hey Mackenzie, how are you? And check out Mackenzie's channel as well. Jules says Sam is the Maester that was promised. He will change and bring new order to those stuffy old men. I think that's a great place, thanks Jules, to start our Sam talk. This chapter, Brienne's chapter, the last chapter we did, and Jaime's chapter, Randall Tarley is mentioned in every single chapter as in an essential way. Is there something to that? Is there something to, I think, because in Brienne's chapter there's so much talk of Randall Tarley rebuilding Maidenpool. I wonder, is that like foreshadowing that Sam will rebuild, maybe he'll be part of the rebuilding of Westeros society later on, and he will ironically become the son that Randall always wanted, in a way. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Or it's not always positive when they talk about Randall Tarley. So is this building up to Randall Tarley being taken out by dragons or something later on, so that we'll remember this guy, because he comes up in 3 chapters here in a row.
Well, I quite like that notion that there'll be, you know, something sort of bittersweet with Sam proving, or being able to prove, his abilities to his father, but his father's no longer around. In this chapter, There's a story that's told about how Sam embarrasses Lord Tarly in front of the red wines, and how he was supposed to actually squire for the red wines, but they were like, no, well, you know, they didn't mention him again, and they didn't ask him to stay. So Tarly must have been, like, you know, mortally offended by that. And I think you're right. I think there is, I think Sam, I've just kind of got a really strong feeling that Sam is going to be one of those people there at the end who helps to do a lot of the rebuilding, and you know, the whole, what's the name of the last book, A Dream of Spring, or yeah, there's that. I think he'll be there for that. And his dad won't be there to see that actually he was the son that he always wished for. So yeah, I do quite like that.
I loved this chapter, actually. I forgot this chapter. And there's actually quite a lot in this chapter that I knew, but I forgot that it came from this chapter, you know, the bits about the unicorns and all that kind of thing. The reason, again, that I want to bring up this Sam being some sort of narrator as we move into Dream of Spring, or some sort of educational leader in the aftermath of whatever comes. The name of the ship they're on is Blackbird, and Blackbird makes me think of song. And you know, I've mentioned this before, George coming out of the 60s and 70s, Blackbird by the Beatles just kept going around in my head. It's like the song of Ice and Fire might be the story of Ice and Fire. We get that in Jaime's chapter as well. And you know, that might be a nod to where Sam's story is going. He might be this song part as well. So and songs are used to kind of preserve history as well. What would you like to focus on from this chapter?
Well, I've got a couple of questions. The first one, just generally about the Skagosi. So yeah, we get a lot of the rumors and the stories and everything about, you know, they're supposed to be cannibals and they're stone-born. So you've got Westeros here, and on one side of Westeros you've got the Ironborn, and then on the other side of Westeros you've got the Stoneborn, and you've got the Storm God and the Drowned God. And so there's, I don't know, there seems to be something connecting the, you know, these elements of like fire, ice, earth, and, you know, like iron and stone, and I don't know, these elemental elements. But do you think this is, I suppose what I'm asking is, do you believe the hype when it comes to the Skagosi? Do they really ride around on shaggy unicorns? Are they really cannibals? Or have they invented is it propaganda that they're sending out to basically keep people away? You know, no, you don't want to go there, they eat people. But actually it's some kind of like, you know, like heaven on earth, and that's where Rickon is, and he's having like an absolutely amazing time.
Oh, the Wakanda of Westeros.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Maybe.
Could be.
Or maybe it's just like the Ironborn, and they're kind of backward, and they're just lucky these stories got out. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you think are we ever going to see it?
Well, we've got in the books, like real time at the moment, we've got Davos on his way over. He's been sent on a mission, hasn't he, by Manderley?
Yeah.
So he is,
to get Rickon.
Like, he was filled with dread when he found out what the location was, because because of all these rumors, especially if you're from that kind of seafaring, you know, whether you're a sailor or a smuggler or whatever, you will have heard the horror stories about Skagosi or Skagos, and Manderley's sent you there on a mission.
Yeah, I really want to see it.
I think we probably, I don't know, maybe we will. It depends on whether or not Rickon ever comes back into the story again, or is his tail just a shaggy dog tail where it goes nowhere?
You have to choose one, cannibal or unicorn.
Unicorn.
Yeah, but for the plot, I mean, maybe Davos hanging up over a pot about to go in.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And he's rescued by Rickon and Shaggy Dog. Rickon on a unicorn, maybe. Maybe we'll get both. Yeah, I there's a line about Aemon. He's kind of suffering from some form of dementia, it seems, or somebody is maybe communicating with him and mixing up the communication. The wires are getting crossed. But he talks about not crying in a long time. When did he last cry? Is that because he's blind? Are his tear ducts damaged? Or did something so bad happen to him in the past that nothing else has quite brought him to that level of rock bottom?
Well, we're talking about Maester Aemon, yeah? Mm-hmm. Do you, in terms of the proximity to Bloodraven at the wall?
Yeah.
And one of my questions was, did Bloodraven bring Maester Aemon to the wall? Did he kind of, did he sort of implant this calling to him? What was the timeline? I don't know. I'm guessing that Bloodraven's been there, installed in his little location where he is in his little cave for longer than Maester Aemon has been at the wall, but they both have that Targaryen heritage, and I'm wondering if they're kind of, even if they're just, are they aware of each other?
I'm sure they'd have to be, right? Well, definitely. I mean, Bloodraven.
Bloodraven will be aware that that Aemon's there, but
so, yeah. Aemon says this about not crying when he's telling Sam about the baby swap.
Yeah.
And it made me wonder, well, Aemon has probably already seen a major baby swap. And it convinces me even further that he knows who Jon Snow is.
Yes, and this again, there are different themes that are weaved into the previous chapter, and it wasn't that long ago that we heard from Roderick the Reader over on Harlow on the Iron Islands about this wheel. It's all happened before and it'll all happen again, history repeating itself. So yeah, it seems like this baby swap has happened before, and swapping the babes to protect the prince, that's what the quote was. The babies were swapped to protect the prince.
Yeah
I think that's happened before, that a prince has been protected as part of a baby swap, and that is an example of history repeating itself. But my question with Mance's babe is, it felt to me as though the storm god or the drowned god was trying to claim Mance's babe because the storm was that bad.
This is what my question is as well. I wrote down the storm and the shrieking babe.
Yeah.
Is it the storm god? Is it winter? Like what? It seems that when we get to the Kingsmoot, like there's a lot of waves and wind coming, like as if like it's heralding in the Kingsmoot, or maybe heralding in Euron as well.
The storm god and the drowned god are supposed to be in this eternal battle, aren't they?
Yeah.
So with Balon, for example, what they say is that the storm god took him because of the storms on, the rope ladders and everything on Pike, but he went to the drowned god. So the drowned god, in the watery, like the watery feasts and everything, that you'll be, that's what it's like, the equivalent of heaven. But one of them, it's like, it was that storm was almost biblical. I think there was something religious going on there, and I feel as though some kind of magical element was trying to claim that baby. There's something significant about that baby.
Definitely.
And I don't even know why that thought would have occurred to Jon. You know, why would he have been clamoring to get I mean, yeah, royal, you know, the royal blood thing and, you know, king's blood, but I think there's something particular about that baby that all different types of gods, or whether it's the god, one god and it's got many faces or whatever, but it seemed to me that the storm god / drown god was trying to kill that baby on that ship on that voyage because it was just horrific.
Well, a storm is when like the cold and the hot kind of meet and create this pressure. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I mean, if this is one of Craster's other type babies coming, like he's the cold coming south, maybe it's something to do with that. Maybe it's symbolic, but it could be the storm god. I mean, certainly Euron channels the storm god. And I am growing in the belief that Euron has either been tampered with by Bloodraven, is working with Bloodraven, or is somehow unwittingly working in Bloodraven's favor of some kind. Yeah. It would kind of make sense that those two are kind of that kind of air god, because the storm god could be an air god, right? We haven't seen like an air force as an element yet. So that could be, and Bloodraven, I guess, with the crows and the references to flight and the wind in the trees, all that kind of thing, that's kind of the air element taken care of.
Yeah.
So it could absolutely be a combination of all those things coming together. Whether we'll get an answer to that though or not, whether it'll always be just us, like George, building in these layers for us to kind of read whatever we want into it, and I don't know, but certainly that storm is it's very unique. It's
I'm surprised that actually the way it was described, that they all survived it.
Johnny says it's a race between the Bloodraven and between Bloodraven and the Faceless Men to the Citadel. So there was a wreckage that they see as well. What do you think the wreckage is? Or are we supposed to know what the wreckage is?
Again, I think that could just be the Skagosi have put that out there as a ploy to, like, oh, don't you don't come anywhere, not even anywhere near the circumference of this island, because your boat will just get smashed to smithereens. Here's an example. I don't know, decoy.
Yeah. So Johnny says it might be a race between Bloodraven and the Faceless Men. Mackenzie, thank you so much. That's so sweet. So yeah, interestingly, the crew blame Gilly for this. And the incense. They blame her burning incense. The incest. But of course, Sam knows that there is no incest. This isn't the right baby. So they're wrong actually in blaming that. But interesting that, the woman gets blamed for it.
So equally, I suppose, if we think that the storm god or the drown god, more like the storm god, was trying to kill this baby, what was it that saved the baby? So did it have some kind of magical protection that saved it? So, or did yeah,
that would be interesting. I wonder, does it help that Aemon Targaryen is on the boat?
Maybe the baby is drawing the life element out of Maester Aemon, because it is. I know she calls it monster, but it's quite an aggressive baby. This baby, it's like Gilly describes this baby as being much more like, it's bitey when it's trying to feed and cries all the time. And her baby, like her actual baby, was quite quiet, slept a lot, was much more manageable. So, yeah.
So my question is, how did Sam not realize that this is a different baby?
I don't know. Well, he's in love as well, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. So he's not always looking at the baby when she's breastfeeding, I think is the answer there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like the others tend to bring snowstorms with them, so it could go either way with that storm. So was there anything else then for the Sam chapter?
No, just the singer Darian, who Sam described his voice as being honey over thunder, which Stuart laughed at because he said, don't you remember way back in when it was Sam's first chapter, I think, and Sam was really scared and they were walking through the snow in like beyond the wall, and Pip had said Sam was asking them to sing because it would calm him down, and Pip described Gren's singing voice as a piss over a fart. So that's very different. So honey over thunder is Darian's voice, and piss over a fart is Gren's voice. Yeah. I just thought I'd point that out, but yeah.
Good, that is good. Yeah, so yeah, I really enjoyed that chapter this week. A chapter that I didn't really get a huge amount from, actually, Jaime 2. But maybe you'll change my mind. I got one thing out of it, or a couple of things, but not much. Where would you like to start with Jaime 2?
Well, let's start with a question. In this chapter, we hear about King Aerys and how horrible he was, like behind closed doors, and how he used to get like lusty after burning, and he would go and rape Rhaella. And when everything was kicking off in King's Landing, when the capital was being sacked, Rhaella left hooded in a ship, but I think possibly bound for Storm's End. Maybe he'd sent her to Dragonstone, but she herself, basically what I'm trying to say is, when she left barefoot and pregnant and hooded, pregnant with Daenerys, did she leave following his orders, or did she leave because she was running away and she was escaping from the rape and the the Mad King, and he had his guard standing outside the door while he was abusing his wife, and I think she would have taken that as an opportunity to escape. And if everyone, or at least the king, thinks he's sending his wife away to safety to one location, would she be able to use that to her advantage to divert whatever means of transport to somewhere else? Because this is pointed out quite descriptively here, that he was lusty and just horrible.
That there was bite marks in her, right?
Yeah. She was like physically abused as well as raped, and just he had this lust about him whenever there was any burning.
She looked like she was suffering from shock.
Yeah.
I mean, the hood, the fact that she looks different, it's all pointing to a kind of cloak and dagger action with her later on, or something.
And the fact that we have this mentioned in this chapter, and in the previous chapter, there's this thing about a baby swap that has just happened, and then something like this is mentioned. It's not directly alluded to, of course it wouldn't be, because then everything would be much more obvious. But I just think it's interesting how I can't hear you. Have you muted yourself?
Oh, sorry. I said, and we wouldn't be streaming every Sunday night.
Oh, well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But I think that was a subtle reference in there that maybe Rhaella escaped while all that was going on, rather than following the king's orders, and which I suppose then makes me think again about whether or not Stannis followed the king's orders or whether he followed his brother's orders. But I think there's something about history repeating itself. I know everyone kind of rolls their eyes and goes, oh, not the baby swap thing again, but it's hinted at so many times.
Yeah, there's also something like an obvious disguise that we already have an answer to, pointed out in this chapter with the Hound he's being blamed for ravaging the salt pans, where we find out later on that's Rogan Biter. So there's already a provable instance of mistaken identity or deliberate mistaken identity. And it kind of ties in with something that I picked up on in this chapter that was a strong theme for me. Jaime is constantly seen as the bad guy. He was supposed to be the villain of the piece, but as George got into writing this character, Jaime changed. He was the villain of the piece all the way up until we saw him in Storm for the first time from his point of view. I work with young people. You've worked with young people as well. He was, 15 when he joined the Kingsguard? And within a couple of years, this is what he was seeing. This is what he was seeing being done to this woman.
Yeah.
That would traumatize you for life. Okay, he was already sleeping with Cersei. Forget that bit, okay? That is going to fuck up what you think is right and wrong in the world.
Yeah.
People saying, shouldn't we stop that? Shouldn't we take care of her? She's the queen. Oh, we're not to protect her from him. Like, that's going to play with, and then you've got your dad on one side, you've got Cersei on the other side. Jaime is surrounded by crazy. He's just surrounded by crazy. Mackenzie says it's very possible that Raella wanted to go somewhere else. Going to the enemy territory is similar to her eldest son Rhaegar and Lyanna. That's true. Yeah, Rhaegar goes to Dorne, right? So yeah, that's very true. It's just throughout this, obviously, Jaime is being haunted by who Cersei is sleeping with, which is confirmed in Cersei's chapter, like we didn't know already. But he's going through the White Book with Loras at the end of this chapter. And I am of the belief that Jaime's endgame will be one of the most bittersweet. I think Jaime will achieve something of huge sacrifice on behalf of the kingdom, and it won't get recorded. I think that's where he'll know that going into it.
Maybe just one person knows, but nobody will ever believe them, like Brienne or someone like that.
Or Tyrion.
Yeah.
Tyrion might decide that he's not going to record it out of whatever. But it ends this. He talks about I forget who it is. He talks about being a kingmaker. It ends on that note that the forgotten kingmaker in the making is what I see Jaime being. Whatever Jaime does, it will lead to the crowning of a king or queen, but he won't get there might be some reason that they can't give him credit for it. But whatever it is, if it's Sansa, for instance, maybe she won't want to give the person who pushed her brother out the window the credit for doing that. It could be something like that. I just feel like this is all leading up to, like, we go from Jaime seeking legend here, and that's what he does. He's seeking legend. He wants his honor, and he wants that recorded as a legend, to Cersei seeking prophecy, like fulfilling the prophecy. And that's what's driving these two characters, and it's driving them at a collision course with history, I think. But
it's interesting because in this chapter, I've kind of underlined the conversation that he's having about the Kingsguard, the kind of chat that he's having with Loras at the end of this chapter, and he says, when they're looking at the book, that one will have songs and one will be forgotten. And I just think that's those two. So of the two of them, will it be Loras that will have songs written about him and Jaime will be forgotten? Or will it be the other way around? Or will it be, it's...
I think Loras, I know Loras is killed in the show. I think there's every chance that Loras could survive this and go on to make the next Kingsguard, if that's the way it goes. Because Jaime sees a lot of potential in Loras. And even back when he did that really great chapter analysis in Storm, on the makeup of the Kingsguard when he arrives to take over. He does really see potential in Loras that, you know, Loras is a bit arrogant right now, but he could go on and make a great Kingsguard. But yeah, I think Loras is definitely going to have the songs.
And Jaime will be the one that's forgotten.
I think so.
That would be bittersweet, especially for everyone who's like following Jaime's story for this massive redemption arc.
Well, he will be redeemed for the reader, just not for Westeros.
Yeah.
That would be very bittersweet.
Yeah.
So, and it'd be very George, I think.
Yes.
It's kind of Tolkien-esque as well. That the reader knows something that the rest of the world will never know. That he'll be still Kingslayer for them, but he'll be Kingmaker for us.
Yeah.
Queenmaker. He might be a Queenslayer as well, I guess. But yeah.
So in this chapter, I think it kind of confirms to me that Kevin was only really loyal to Tywin, and he doesn't give a shit about Cersei. He mentions the incest again to Jaime, so it confirms to Jaime the paranoia that Cersei had previously about, you know, Uncle Kevin mentioned this, and Jaime's like, no, you just reading into what he said, and it's like, oh, okay, you've just come straight out with it and kind of mentioned the incest thing again before he, like, you know, turns around and heads back to wherever he's going. It's not Castle Rock, is it? He's going to the Derry.
Yes, Derry. Yeah.
And I mean, at the moment, everyone, I think this is a book where this book in the series particularly has a lot of transformation going on for different characters. Like we were talking about Sansa before, even though there isn't a Sansa chapter this week. Sansa is learning to lie. She's learning to know about things like how to be deceitful, and you know, a lot of characters are changing, and I think and in turmoil at the moment, and I think this is Jaime where he's still jealous. He's still, I mean, to me, I just made a note saying, yeah, it definitely feels like things are completely over now between Jaime and Cersei. Probably more from Cersei's perspective.
Yeah, definitely.
Jaime, I think, is still clinging in, you know, hanging in there to the hope that no, the stuff that Tyrion said can't possibly be true, can it? And you know, it's this slow realization. Like he's watching her, kind of like he must be able to see that she's staring at this guy who looks just like Rhaegar, that you know, Arianne Waters or whatever he's called. Yeah. And also he comes to the realization in this chapter, Jaime, that he will, that's it, no more melees for Jaime. You know, so all the honor and the woohoo, you know, the look at how handsome, just the, you know, the showboating that the knights do with the melees, and he can't do that anymore. His melee days are numbered. So you know, he's just constantly being kind of emasculated, particularly with Cersei. So yeah, there's definitely a kind of transformation thing going on.
I mean, they're both thinking about Tyrion a lot as well.
Yes.
You know, Connie says that Jaime will be in the White Book for having to take down his sister. Yeah, he could be recorded as a Kingslayer and a Queenslayer, and he's kind of a, you know, a Handslayer as well. I mean, he kind of killed Tywin through his action. And Bubba said he's been stabbed with the Queen for years, but never killed her. That's true. And Connie remarks, and hi Connie, how are you? Connie remarks that Jaime is looking his age. Yeah, I mean, now they look different. You know, they're starting to, they don't look identical as they used to. Because now he's sporting a beard, and she's, you know, I was going to say something gross, but I won't.
There's a distance there between them, definitely.
I was going to say something about being with kettlebacks, but never mind. Okay, so was that it for Jaime too?
Yes.
Yeah. So God, Cersei 4 is a huge chapter. Huge chapter. So, I mean, she's crazy. She's crazy. I kind of forgot just how crazy she is until, like, she's loving being in power here, but I mean, she's so stupid, especially with Qyburn. I forgot that Qyburn was encouraging them to get Davos killed. Did you forget that? I've completely forgot that.
Yeah, well, yes, he's. Oh well, yeah. Just the advice, the stupid moves that they're making. But he's basically advising that, look, we need the Manderleys. We've got to get the Manderleys on board, and to beat Stannis back. This is her main enemy, I think, now at the moment, is Stannis. She thinks about people like, she thinks about the Ironborn as squids and that she'll just squash them quite easily. But I think she really sees Stannis as quite a threat. So she's listening to anyone who will tell her this is the best way to take Stannis out of the picture, even to the point of, well, just get rid of his hand, then get rid of Davos. So she's listening to all sorts of crap and agreeing with it. Yeah, this is a huge chapter, and there's another chapter next week that's just as big.
Huge.
Yeah.
So
there's some really epic Cersei chapters in Feast, but
because she's just meandering all over the place, like ignoring big things, Iron Bank, the Sparrows, completely ignoring them, plotting to have Jon Snow killed, completely loses it about Sansa, and all the guys in the room are like, she's a 13-year-old girl, Cersei, can you calm down? We don't even know where she is. What is she going to do to you? You've the Iron Bank knocking on your door, and you've this strange. By the way, the High Septon has just died in his sleep.
Yeah,
I mean, come on, and the way she has welcomed, like, Pycelle. I mean, I never thought I'd be saying this, but Pycelle has a point. Why are you making this guy? Why are you calling Qyburn Lord? He hasn't even been in your service a wet weekend, like. Like, at one stage she asked Qyburn, why are the bells ringing, or when will the bells stop? And he says sunset, and she thinks to herself, oh, I like him, he knows things. He knows that the bells are going to stop. That's not like that's not an epic move on his part. As Connie points out, to get Davos killed and to get Jon killed is not what you should be thinking about here.
He is anticipating. She's not difficult to read, Cersei.
No.
So Qyburn is quite easily anticipating what she's thinking, and she then in turn thinks that that's genius, and he's so clever because he's already understanding what's important to her in that moment, and he's not. He's just reading her like a book. But we get in this chapter another massive reshuffle in terms of the small council and the political to-ins and fro-ins in King's Landing. And there's some really sad moments that just get skipped over in the dialogue, which kind of takes your breath away when you read it. Just a line, and then it carries on. Like the dwarfs' heads, and one of them is a dwarf sparrow, which is the guy who Brienne was talking to on the road a few chapters back. But it's mentioned and then just kind of skipped over. But we as the readers obviously know that this was actually, this was an innocent man, and we got to know him a little bit as one of these side characters. And she talks about having a mountain of dwarf skulls, if it means that she can be in power and defeat a brother. She's just sick.
And also they drop, like, she drops in the middle of that one of them was the head of an ugly child. It's horrendous. I mean, she shows absolutely zero emotional response to this.
No.
It's kind of incredible. She's definitely the most evil point of view we have in Feast, I think. even Victarion, who kills his wife in the next chapter, seems more sympathetic than Cersei does at this stage. It's quite extraordinary, really. It's like watching a roller coaster go out of control. Pycelle says a few strange things here. One of the things he says, it kind of brings back what you started off today talking about. He says, war in the Vale would be most tragic. Now, I don't remember Pycelle ever being that vocal about the tragedy of war. Why would it be most tragic in the Vale, where the Vale is like emptying now at this stage because of winter? Autumn is coming. Like, people are like,
and when has he ever been concerned about Littlefinger's welfare?
Never, unless he's on Littlefinger's payroll,
or unless he knows that that's Sansa's location.
Could be. It's a very strange thing. Is Pycelle still alive in Dance? I can't remember what happened to Pycelle. Is he dead?
No,
now?
he gets killed by the little birds, doesn't he?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Just, I don't know. It just seemed a bit strange. The other thing is Merryweather drops the line that you can't pay the Golden Company with snow, which I thought was funny, because they actually might be able to pay the Golden Company with snow, as in Jon Snow, if they play their cards right. That would be an interesting handover for them. And she thinks that I have Renly nail art today, so it actually kind of fitted in nicely that Renly came up, because there was a strange line that also hit me here, that she thinks life would have been very hard for her under Renly. She believes that Stannis is less of a threat than Renly. I mean,
yeah, because there's that notion that nobody likes Stannis. Everybody would have rallied around Renly. He's so popular, and but at the same time, you get that reflected in this on a smaller stage right there in the small council, in that nobody's really rallying around Cersei.
No.
You know, nobody's kind of going, oh, thank God you're now in charge. We don't know what we would have done if your father would have carried on with his nonsense. Now we've got somebody competent in charge. We completely, it just makes me wonder. And in the chapter, Cersei, in her own mind, in her own point of view, thinks how elegant her plans are. Oh, this is so clever of me. I'm just like, how could anybody, the whole thing with Marjorie, the Kettle Blacks and sleeping with Marjorie and the setup with Marjorie, and it's also beautifully, the payoff is going to be that we can send him to the wall, and then his job's still not done. He's then going to like take out Jon Snow, and it's like just such bad plans, bad moves, like just basic stuff. Like, you can't just turn around to the Iron Bank and say, no, you respectfully wait until I decide when to pay you, because I've got an Iron Fleet to be like robbed from right under my eyes. It's just ridiculous. I mean, there's some really strange things talked about in this small council meeting. They talk about punishment for the Red Wedding. We must show, show some kind of punishment for that. And they talk about thinning out the phrase and then like installing. I suppose, thinks that she can engineer how she wants every part of Westeros to be running. We'll just install a patsy into that situation. There'll be a fray. They'll be grateful that he was able to, they're all clambering out there. They're all infighting at the moment, the phrase, to get to be the next, Lord of the Crossing. So she can take advantage of that and put one of her own men in there somehow.
She's trying to be Tywin, but Tywin would never have revealed that plan.
Yeah, and like, oh, if only you could see me now, father. Yeah. And he'd be like, Cersei, for God's sake. Yeah.
He would have probably had you killed, Cersei. Connie says she can have Qyburn stir up Moon tea for her, a confidant. Yeah. I mean, the day Qyburn starts putting something else in that moon tea, I think it'll be a very interesting day. Mackenzie says, I guess with the thought to get Jon and Davos killed kind of sets up Jon's rise to power, at least Cersei in the show. And that's how it plays out in the show, potentially, yeah. Connie says, whoever lives in the Vale is being spied on by his own birds, maybe. The Eyrie could get starved out, being so dependent on the world below. I feel like the Eyrie is one of those places it's been set up to fall. I don't think we've seen the last of the Eyrie. It's too strange a place for it to be the last we've seen of it. For sure. In fact, speaking of the Eyrie, something I have completely missed on every read is a mention of Robert wanting to bring his bastard girl to King's Landing after that incident with Joffrey and the cat. That's Maya Stone, right?
Yes.
Maya Stone. And was Robert suspicious that Joffrey wasn't his? Was he bringing her there to maybe see a comparison?
The comparison, the black of hair.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Why else would he bring Maya Stone to King's Landing after that incident in particular? That's what made me wonder. Did Robert, in one of his more lucid moments of sobriety, think, maybe I need to look at this? Or did maybe John Arryn suggest, you should bring Maya here? Because Maya is lovely. Maya, you kind of get like a kind of Edric, Gendry type feeling from her.
Yeah, she's older, isn't she, as well?
Yeah.
So
and
maybe
Shireen, Renly, you can kind of see that kind of... There's a fun-loving but strong sense of right and wrong in them all. So that's very different to Joffrey, who cuts open a cat.
Yeah.
So it made me... I missed it before, so I'm going to be watching out for other things that Robert may have done that may suggest he was suspicious.
Yeah.
Because if that's the case, he was even more incompetent a king than I thought.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else then from Cersei?
No, I don't. Well, I had a couple of questions. One of them was about would Sansa be able to rally the troops to depose Cersei? I'm sure that's likely to be the case, that Sansa would be able to rally the troops more than Cersei is. But who was the Myrish sea captain that was Tenor Merryweather's lover?
I was going to ask you that, actually.
And is this person... Is she still in league with this person, maybe?
I mean, unless it's someone... Would it be someone... No, he's Tyroshi, and definitely Tyroshi. I was thinking Dario, maybe.
Captain, a Myrish sea captain. So does anyone in the comments know who it is? Who is this? Who's this lover that she was shy about revealing to Cersei? She just... all we got was that he was a Myrish sea captain. And could he be behind her motivations at the moment?
Potentially, yeah.
That was it for me for that chapter.
So then we come to our 2 Ironborn chapters. This happens very rarely, where we get 2 chapters in the same location. Although it just happened with Jaime and Cersei, so ignore what I just said. So it actually happens sometimes. So this is the Iron Captain, which, of course, Victarion Greyjoy. When I first read Feast, when this chapter came along, I was like, what? Why are we getting a chapter from Victarion Greyjoy? Do I need this in my life right now? Do we need Victarion Greyjoy POVs in our life? That's my question to start with.
Well, no, he's part of the plague of uncles, isn't he? I think, for me, the only question that I've got that relates to this is why they didn't combine forces.
That's exactly my question. This is ridiculous. You have Aeron Damphair, who already has a following behind him. He wants Victarion. You have Victarion, and you have Asha, who knows by the next chapter that she's losing. She's not going to win.
Mm.
I mean, they basically just handed it to Euron.
Yeah. There was never ever going to be any different outcome, even despite the fact that they're crying, "Who will rule us? Who, please?" You know, and it's like you've sealed your own fate. But Asha did actually suggest it, though, that they rule together. I mean, she didn't. He takes it immediately as, "Oh, you mean we need to get married?" And things start stirring and stuff for him, and he's like, "For God's sake." But what she's suggesting is, look, I'll be your hand, and in a way, I mean, he's got a physical presence, Victarion, as a figurehead. You know, just pushing him out there to the front to again rally the troops, I guess. But with Asha quite graciously deciding, look, I don't need the limelight, but I want to be the one who's actually, you know, engineering how you rule. That would have worked perfectly. But it's the clash, isn't it, between the old ways and the it's a different way.
It's pride and arrogance on Victarion's part as well. It's something that we see in him throughout this series. I feel like Aeron was trusting in the religious forces to bring the right result. Asha is trusting in the reasonable side of the Ironborn. Asha, I'd have more trust in the bloody drowned god than the reasonable side of the Ironborn. And Victarion is hoping that they'll just hate Euron. Like
and that they'll just want things to continue like they did under Baelon. That's all you'll get from me is just more of the same.
It's crazy. Can I just say that if my brother-in-law raped me, or for some reason we ended up sleeping together, I'd be slightly miffed if Ivan ended up choking me and punching me to death.
Yeah.
Slightly miffed. I mean, I wouldn't have long to be miffed about it. But
yeah.
I mean, is it just because he knows he wouldn't get anywhere near close to beating up Euron? Is that the point? I mean, Victarion seems like he's quite a physical presence in and of himself. I would love to have seen that in the show, like the Kraken helm. I mean, sounds incredible.
It seems to me like all of the all of the brothers are suffering from some sort of PTSD at the hands of Euron when they were younger. I think the person who it manifests itself in more obviously is Damphair.
Yeah.
But quite clearly Victarion is equally as terrified. But that's how it comes out with him. He beats his wife to death because of what Euron did, because he can't beat Euron to death. And then, and he wraps that up in the justification of Baelon, saying you know, nothing as cursed as a kinslayer. But
which is very they seem to hold on to two things that the kind of the landed Westerosi hold on to, which is that kind of kinslaying, kingslaying, and incest. The aversion to those three things seem to be the only things in their culture that kind of keep them in the Westerosi world. Other than that, everything is so different in this world.
But it makes I mean, if she was pregnant, even if she was just a salt wife, she's pregnant and he beats her to death. Is that not kinslaying?
Well, also, how do you know that that's Euron's baby?
Well, yeah, exactly. So, either way, the unborn child is his kin, whether it's
almost
Euron's
like,
or his.
Because Euron has a massive god complex, clearly. It's almost like he's cursing his brothers. He's cursing them from a long, like years away, you know. He's forcing one into incest, one into kinslaying. Seems, I mean, he will be a kinslayer and an incestuous person himself, but because he's a god, He's the manifestation of the drowned god on Earth, almost. It feels like he doesn't count for him. He's reducing them to sinful humans, if you like. Ones that are not worthy, because they won't be able to handle it. They won't be able to handle the shame, the need for vengeance, all that kind of thing. He transcends all of that because he is Euron Crow's Eye. He's a fascinating character.
Oh,
sorry. Am I?
Yeah, so I thought the microphone had dropped out then.
No.
I mean, Aeron talks about how no godless man can sit the sea stone chair, which obviously eliminates Asher, but the godless bit. And I think there is a fascination with Euron about religion. He does seem to be collecting religious from everywhere, not, all different types of religion. And, magical beings. He's got this strange sort of the crew that he's got on the Silence, and the blue lips and everything, and the warlocks, and just he talks about how he's got lots of knowledge of gods. So why is he? That's not something that you just stumble across. He's gone out seeking that knowledge. But why? And why lots of different type of gods? Why not the drowned god? He says that he's served 10,000 gods.
Yeah, because he's answered the prayers of the people who ask for death, who ask for silence. That he is death. He is silence. So I think that's what he means. But the thing with Euron is he points out a problem with talking about A Song of Ice and Fire that we ran into the other night as well on the stream with Johnny and LMR. This, I think the definition of God is problematic with A Song of Ice and Fire, because God isn't what we think of as God, like, a creator, all-knowing, all-seeing. I think gods are quite limited in what they can do and see and achieve in this book. I think gods here, and you've talked about this before with the idea of the old gods, that there seems to be something about that some religions, especially old religions, are called religions and referred to as having gods, but they may be just old forms of magic.
Yeah.
So I think that that's something that Euron as a character seems to be pointing towards. I mean, the fact that he has this black eye that he touches, there's something, it's almost as if Euron himself was touched by some great evil, or he was tampered with in some way, and he tries to maybe control the trauma of that himself by inflicting this evil in the world. And that isn't to completely negate the evil that he does. He is still an evil guy, that's true.
Well, Victarion thinks about Euron as having bad blood.
Yes, that's right, which is very and the father's blood is bad. That his father's blood turned bad in him. It's not the mother's blood. It's the father's blood that turned bad. Which I don't know how they come to that conclusion, really.
I don't know. But yeah, I think maybe he was kind of infected by something, or damaged by somebody, or something happened to him. I mean, this, I suppose, would play into that theory that Euron somehow failed Bloodraven's test to be the next Green Seer, years ago. Bran's now on the trial.
Yeah, Jules says that when Victarion gets all creepy and he looks at Asha as a woman. Yeah, it is very creepy. These Greyjoys, I mean, come on. Like, they turn on a dime, these guys. Connie asks, was Euron raped by Quellen?
Possibly.
the thing. Like, I mean, it often happens where perpetrators of abuse were abused themselves. That's quite common. Um, and again, that doesn't excuse what they do, but it is quite common. You're on obviously the blue lips, then
Mm.
that you might be drinking nightshade of some sort.
Yeah, it's strange. Your microphone's doing that strange thing again, Kat. Unless it's just me. Can you let us know in the chat? Are you hearing?
Can you hear me properly?
Oh, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Maybe I was just too far away.
Is there or something covering it up or something? I don't know. Yes, I think
I should say that
something traumatic has happened to Euron in the past, but I don't think that excuses him being such a turd at the moment.
Yeah. Jules, is it okay now? Could you hear me? Or I should say that the USB that this connects to the laptop with is sellotaped together.
It could be it.
Could be it. Yeah, that could be it. I kind of treat my technology like Euron treats his women. I think that's all I have for Victarion, really. I mean, we've already touched on Damphair's chapter anyway.
This is just, I mean, it's interesting that they just flow into each other, these two chapters. But it's interesting at the beginning of the chapter, both chapters, at the beginning of the Iron Captain and at the beginning of the Drowned Man, is a reference to Naga's bones being like the bones of a great white tree. And again, they're mentioned in the Drowned Man. So both of them, both Victarion and Damphair, look at Naga's bones and think of them as being like tree trunks or white tree. And I just wonder if, and I've heard this theory plenty of times before, basically what is Naga? She's supposed to be in the legend, the Ironborn legend, a sea monster. But the fact that this description from both of them at the beginning of each of these chapters, could Naga's bones be petrified weirwoods?
Mm-hmm.
Would weirwoods be on the Iron Islands? Is this because they talk about this being a holy place where this, and it seems like there is what they're looking at is, and I know that there's a children's story in literature about like giants in the hills, and you know the shoulders move and the rolling. It's basically a great big hill, and what's buried underneath is the sea monster Naga, but growing up from the hill are these ribs, so they kind of go like this. So it looks like the ribs of some great big animal that's been buried in underneath this hill. But is it just a hill? And are these old, again, fits in with this something about the Ironborn culture being ancient, like really prehistoric, ancient.
Yeah.
And, you know, they've not.
That kind of fits in with what Euron claims. He kind of alludes to the fact that he has already set the sea stone chair. Maybe he was given some sort of vision.
Well, just there's a lot of odd things that are said in this chapter, like that observation about Naga, but also some of the stuff that Damphair's saying. I'm kind of skipping into the next chapter now because they do merge together.
Oh no, yeah, no, we can move on to the next chapter for sure. Yeah.
When he talks about, he says we were born from the sea and to the sea we return, which you listen to and you just think, oh, it's the ramblings of some, you know, some religious idiot who's, you know, he's obsessed with the drowned god. But what the hell does that mean? What, we were born from the sea? How were they born from the sea? What I think there's a lot more about Ironborn lore that's in Roderick's books that he hasn't got to yet. And But I just like, where would that come from? We were born from the sea, to the sea we must return.
Well, I thought that was kind of like the way Christians say that they're baptized. And that's like,
Oh, right, yeah,
born into
reborn.
the
I was
faith.
reborn. Yeah, reborn from the sea.
You're born into the faith, kind of.
Yeah. The
Like,
baptism
they
thing
don't see
would
it as
make
fully
sense.
Iron born until...
To me, I just saw some like subterranean ancient culture crawling up from the sea that then became, you know, evolved into the Ironborn.
Yeah.
But yeah, it could just be that the baptism ceremony. He talks a lot. You know, in that vein, he does talk a lot about being reborn from the sea and how he thinks Euron scares him when he thinks about the dark and the hinges, the door hinges, and how he was a weakling then, and that's not him anymore. He's not that man anymore. He's been reborn, and the when the waves lash over him, it gives him strength, and it kind of washes away this horrible, horrific childhood trauma.
Yeah.
But I do think both of them are suffering from some sort of traumatic, you know, post-traumatic stress.
Definitely. I mean, it comes up in Victarion's chapter when he sees the bones. He calls them the bones of the Grey King's Hall, right? Now, the Greys, that could be the family, whatever, but Grey might also be a way of describing an other.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. I mean, the Grey did the Grey King become the drowned god?
Well, I'm not really sure. I read it in, I can't remember. Is that in the World book?
Yeah, I'm sure there's a big section about the
Ironborn. Section of the Ironborn, and I haven't read it in a while, so I need to actually read that.
But again, reading that, which was a while ago, but it gave me more questions about the Sea Stone chair and the origins of the Sea Stone chair. Just what it's made of, how it got there, how long it's been there. It seems to have been there for longer than the Iron Throne, than any other like sort of man-made structure in Westeros. Absolutely. It's ancient. But I think so that's my question. It's my question to everybody in the chat. Did the Grey King become the drowned god? Because I get the feeling from this chapter that there was, you know, like this ancient king who was beloved by all of his people, but he just wandered off into the sea and nobody ever saw him again. And then that's the origins of the drowned god, is that he became this god because he was such an amazing king. And that's, you know, basically the drowned god is the Grey King. And when everyone goes to, you know, settle in the watery halls with the drowned god, then what they're actually doing is returning to the Grey King.
Is it kind of like Bloodraven? When Bloodraven was really great at the wall, and then he kind of just wanders into the north and doesn't come back.
Maybe, but I just think we should pay attention to the history of the Ironborn, particularly because they've not been controlled, or not as controlled as the rest of Westeros, in the grip of the Maesters, and where all of their like communication and knowledge has been controlled. But it's not been like that in the Iron Islands, and I think their history is fascinating. But just it's whether or not it's just another version of the old gods. I mean, there is a kind of connection here. The first person who comes up to the Kingsmoot and like tips the wares out and everything. I do like the tradition that they have with that. You know, it's very different. Again, it's just another example of how the culture is completely different.
So different, yeah.
If anything, the only comparison that I have with the Kingsmoot is maybe a little bit like how they do the choosing of the Lord Commander at the Wall, but even that's more.
That seems more democratic.
There is an element of democracy there,
because it's still only highborn, ironborn, right?
I suppose the primitive way that they're doing it with the Ironborn is, rather than votes, it's who gets the loudest. It's like the clapometer, isn't it? You know, the old clapometer from 70s game shows. It's like who gets the loudest cheer effectively gets most votes, like vocally gets the votes.
Well, this is my question. If Victarion had held off and allowed Asha to go first, or held off long enough for Euron, or would Euron have just stood his ground and gone last? Would Victarion have had a chance anyway, any order he'd gone against Euron?
No, I don't think he would. I think Euron was always going to, it's just like wrapping up the show, isn't it? Here comes the main act.
Yeah, I mean, it's a way more stirring speech than Asha's speech or Victarion's speech. I mean, Asha is a bit annoying as well. She should have just thrown her weight behind Victarion. I mean, it's basically crap choice A or crap choice B, but I think crap choice A, or in this case E, is just like a million times worse than anything Victarion could have done. But I mean, any politician going up saying more of the same, you're not going to win.
No, and also, they are savage people. So Asha, like you say, pleading to their better nature and talking about peace and alliances is just like, first of all, you're a woman, and now you're coming along with all this wishy-washy shit, which is just typical of a woman. Yeah. So no, sit down. She already knew she'd lost before she stood up. I think that was just, she just had to do that for her own self-preservation. Yeah. But the first guy who stands up, Fairwinds, I thought was quite interesting because he's from way over in like the north west of the Iron Islands, which, if you think about it geographically, is quite close to Bear Island, which is definitely part of the north. But they are described as, everyone feels a bit weird about the Fairwinds because they're miles and miles away for a start. And they're described as the wolves of the sea, and that there's some suspicions there about whether or not they could be skin changers. Ironborn being described as wolves of the sea and possibly skin changers. There you go. There's a connection culturally between the Ironborn and the North and the old gods. So, maybe that wasn't just dropped in there as maybe there is a coincidence there. But
Asha, Connie describes Asha parsnips and pine cones. Yeah. I mean, it's like you're supposed to present treasures, and it's turnips and stuff that she throws at them. So it's almost like a parody of the others. Like it was almost like she was doing bits, getting up saying, hey, is this on?
Yeah.
It's like, come on, Asha, take it somewhat seriously. And she just succeeded in dividing, I think. More than anything else. I'm interested in Damp Hair because this chapter begins with the rusty hinge and ends with the rusty hinge, I think. I believe it does. His god abandons him in this chapter.
Yeah.
And he can't quite believe it. And I feel like even into the chapter that we got from Winds, this is a religious conflict that is going to make or break Aeron. Aeron feels to me like Reek. Psychologically like Reek. I mean, Reek is broken in every way, but
there's definitely there's that constant crisis of faith.
Yeah.
And this is the only thing he's had that's telling him that he's actually on a path, and that he's not this weak, wretched alcoholic that he was previously. Yeah. So he put all of his faith and all of his trust in his God and his religion. And this was the outcome of it. This is what his God is telling him is the best. You know, trust in the drowned God. He will provide us with the right king, with the right outcome. So he's going to have a massive, massive, massive crisis of faith, which might end up with him like drinking again and just...
There is every chance that damp hair could come back stronger. Like, what is dead may never die.
Mm-hmm.
So he might think that old part of himself is dead, but it could come back stronger than ever.
Yeah.
If it can for Theon, if there's any hope for Reek, there's hope for damp hair, I feel. He actually says at the end of this chapter, if I can just find it now. By the way, you have a few questions, I think, in the chat, if you can see it, from Connie. Are they the weirwood hull of the ship made from, is it Egg the Demon Tree? I don't know.
Oh, Egg the Demon Tree, yeah. Oh, the weirwood hull of the, yeah. Well, he's been, I mean, he says that he's been to the smoking rocks of Valyria, and he's been further than anyone else, and I mean, this is what he's promising them, wonders and terrors beyond imagining, and then out pops this dragon binding horn with this horrific sound, but also again this link to Valyria. So he's basically, damp hair is horrified that a godless man is taking the Iron Throne. Euron saying, no, you've got me wrong. I'm the most godly person.
I'm a god,
because I am actually a god. But he's also bringing a lot of elements of fire. So he's bringing the dragon binding horn. There's these ancient Valyrian like glyphs around the horn that burn bright red. This guy who's blowing the horn, he's like, you know, there's like smoke coming out of his mouth. I think he dies later on, and just there's something that's very like fire and blood about this.
I just because Aeron, I want to go back to part of Euron's speech as well, but Aeron says just about that crisis of identity, because I really do think Aeron is going to be an important character. I mean, everybody's an important character, but Aeron in particular. He says, even a priest may doubt, even a prophet may know terror. Aeron Damphair reached within himself for his God and discovered only silence. As 1,000 voices, there's your 1,000 again, shouted his brother's name, all he could hear was the scream of a rusted iron hinge. So he reaches inside and only finds silence. So that's really foreshadowing that chapter that we got from Winds. And I feel like that's the last chapter we're getting from Winds. I think that also speaks volumes about the importance of this character. But that idea that he reached inside and to look for his God, and he only finds Aeron, or he only finds Euron. Like that's the God he's getting. That's it. He needs to learn how to deal with this, because this is it. This is all he's getting. So yeah, you mentioned the horn. This Euron's speech is often pointed to as being one of these seminal moments in the entire series. A lot of people have it up there as the best speech. I think the best speech is to come. I think we've already seen it with Barristan Selmy in the Winds chapter that we got. I think that is far and away my favorite speech. I absolutely love it. But a lot of people focus on, you know, what he's going to bring, the Ironborn, all that kind of thing. But I just want to focus on one part, and I promise I'm only going to read 5 lines. He says, "Crow's eye you call me. Well, who has a keener eye than the crow? After every battle, the crows come in their hundreds and their thousands to feast upon the fallen. A crow can espy death from afar, and I say that all of Westeros is dying. Those who follow me will feast until the end of their days." This for me sounds like Euron has had a vision of, and has been given it with a crow involved of some sort. It's not just that he's called the Crow's Eye. There's something, I think Euron has seen a vision of the war to come, and that broke his mind. Because this idea of like the Ironborn feasting on what's left, it comes after the crows feasting on bodies. Does that mean the Ironborn are also going to be feasting on these bodies? It's almost like a zombie-like vision. It's a vision that Bran hasn't been shown. And I wonder, is this something that Bloodraven experimented with? And maybe experimented with Sweet Robin as well? And realized, no, that's too much. I can't show them that because that breaks them. I won't show this to Bran. Do you know that kind of way?
Yeah. It could be. And I mean, I suppose that puts another spin on the title of Feast for Crows.
Yeah. Actually.
Yeah. It could be. It could just be that all he sees is devastation, and how can we take advantage of it? And it could be that they, they like become whites, thralls. They end up being thralls to another god, but he thinks that he is God.
Is he leading them into something he thinks he can control?
Maybe he's offering his entire people as a sacrifice. He doesn't really seem to give that much of a shit about them, what happens to them.
Does he think that if he can, so maybe he can take the place of the Great Other or the Night King and give all of his people, that maybe he can then rule? I mean, I'm not really sure what drives Euron. He's not driven by love. He doesn't seem to be driven by money. It does seem to be a magical, he really wants a magical, a godly presence. It's really hard to pin him down. You can see what drives Littlefinger. You can see what drives Tywin, what drives Varys. You can kind of figure out, but with Euron, it's very difficult. Bubba points out that Roy Dotrice calls him Damp Fair instead of Damp Hair.
That is annoying. Yeah.
Okay. Connie says his crisis, like Thoros, could make him stronger and more effective. Yeah. Or like Thanos. Maybe Euron is going to click his fingers. And Elmore just shared this. Thank you, Elmore. Bubba says Farwinds are Selkies, turning into seals and whatnot. Plus, they have the best looking sigil. What's the Farwind sigil? I don't know that one.
I don't know.
You maybe you'll tell us, Bubba, what the sigil is. So yeah, there's I feel like in that part of the speech, especially the crows, it gets easily lost in where he's talking about what he's going to give the Ironborn. It's like, what has he taken from the Ironborn in that speech? What has this guy actually seen that's bringing him to this moment where he'd kill his brother in a very timely way as well, right?
Yeah.
He kills Balon just at the right time.
Which means he can see things. He can see into the future. I don't think he needed a faceless man to kill his brother. I think he probably did, like in the TV show, he just did it himself.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, if there was a faceless man, so be it, but...
Maybe he is faceless because he's like magically hidden from, he's kind of, maybe he's on the run from some magical element and he's trying to gather his strength and try to create these forces that will be able to fight whatever he thinks he's up against, which is why he needs dragons on his side.
Will Euron underestimate Damp Hair's power in some way, in the way that Ramsay underestimates what Theon is capable of still?
Yeah, I'm sure of it. I mean, if you read the Forsaken chapter, it sounds like Damp Hair is going to die. That's it. That's the last we see of Damp Hair. But I think he will probably survive.
So do I.
And I think he will. I mean, he's been drugged, he's been beaten, he's tied up, he's in a horrendous state. But I think he probably will survive that. And I think he may. I mean, personally, I just think that it's going to be Sam that brings Euron. I think Euron won't make it to the end. I think he's going to be like the ultimate big baddie from now to the end, just because of the trail of destruction that he leaves. But I think it is, I'm kind of beginning to think, just based on our discussion now, that Euron is wanting to harness fire against the forces of ice, because somehow he's been down the road of what did he say? He has I've served 1,000 gods. I have all the he's boasting about how he's got all the knowledge of gods. So maybe he's been down the path of ice magic, been failed or somehow whatever on that path that he was on, and now he's harnessing the element of fire to fight back with the ice. I don't know. Yeah. I'm going off on a complete tinfoil.
No, I think that's fair. Hi Eduardo in the chat as well. I feel like Aeron could be underestimated by readers as well, but you need to go back and read this chapter, and bear in mind that it's from Aeron's point of view. When I think it's a guy called, I think it's Gilbert. I think he gets up to try and be king, and straight away Aeron clocks his eyes and says, "That's a fool's eyes." So there's still a very clever guy in there, you know. He's behind all this, you know, crazy kind of drowned god chatter and what's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, belief or whatever. There is something very logical to damp hair, and you know, maybe his is the religion that needs to be reignited, or needs a more progressive way forward, and maybe he won't be the one to do that. But if there are Krakens alive, it was Farwind as well. Sorry, is his name Gilbert Farwind? That's where I'm getting it right. Yeah. So when Farwind gets up, yeah. But maybe if there are Krakens seen again on the sea, which there are reports that Krakens have been seen again, it'd be interesting to see if some way Aeron figures some way of getting Euron eaten by a Kraken, or if Euron leads a lot of Ironborn Kraken into their deaths. It would be sweet if a Kraken ended up eating Euron or something. That would be great. That's just in my mind. And as I think it was Connie or Bubba or someone early on, or Johnny, someone said, you know, maybe a cannibal unicorn shows up on Skagos, and all these dreams. We can only dream until 2020. I think that's when we're getting wins now.
Is it?
It's definitely not this year. This year, no. Every year is coming and going. Yeah. Connie says maybe the ghost of Highheart did not see his face, but the crow on shoulder drowned. Was what she saw, because she saw him as a seafarer and knew him as Crow's Eye, but he was cursed as a kinslayer and evil. That's right. Yeah, we had the ghost of Highheart saying that. All right. Did you have anything else then in this Kingsmoot?
No, I don't think so.
It's a great fun fantasy chapter.
It is. And again, it's just that ancient culture that's just fascinating. And this is something even for them that, you know, they've not had this in 100 years, but it's still ingrained in them. It's 2,000 years. Yeah, it's a long time.
Yeah. And they say it's dangerous, and of course it is going to be dangerous, because whoever wins kind of slays whoever voted against you. So all right, next week then we are reading from Brienne 4 to Cersei 5. That Cersei 5 chapter is massive. So if you're reading along with us, give yourself several hours. No, I don't want a good bit of time to get through the Cersei chapter. So thank you so much to everybody who joined us in the chat. Be sure to go and check out anybody who has a channel in there. They should be all clickable. and I leave the chat up afterwards as well, so you can do that. And be sure to check out Claire, who's also linked down below, as is our next stream. So thank
only
you,
if
Claire.
you're into nail polish. Only if you're into nail polish. I don't do Game of Thrones. Yeah.
Actually, I noticed today you're rapidly approaching 2,000. So congratulations.
Oh, am I? Oh.
Well,
wow.
I think you're close to 1,800.
I don't know.
Because I went to copy your link for something today, and yeah, there you go.
Oh.
There you go. All right. Thank you so much. I think Ella Moore has a stream later on, so you might want to check that out.
Cool.
Thanks, everybody. We will see you next week for that Mammoth Cersei chapter. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.